Take a walk down a typical American street 10 years from now, and you will notice a subtle shift. The country is growing older, and the math underneath our economy is reacting. By 2034, the U.S. Census Bureau projects a milestone that has never occurred in American history. Adults aged 65 and older will outnumber children. By the following year, nearly 1 in 4 Americans will be of retirement age. The other side of that equation is a shrinking base of entry-level workers. While the U.S. is actually aging a bit slower than regions like Europe or Japan, the volume of new workers entering the labor force is still dropping relative to the number of retirees. This demographic inversion alters the mathematical foundation of the economy. A smaller pool of active workers is now tasked with generating the wealth and tax revenue needed to support a much larger retired class. This chart shows the primary economic contradiction of the 2030s. The CBO expects the U.S. economy to grow at a slow 1.8% per year, while the federal deficit is projected to stay near $1.9 trillion. This debt is driven by structural, mandatory obligations. Social Security costs are rising automatically as that large cohort of older adults retires. Rising Medicare costs and compounding interest on existing debt create an inescapable deficit, locking in trillions in spending before the government funds basic services. This historical timeline tracks the U.S. debt to GDP ratio. You can see the spike on the left during World War II. By 2035, federal debt is on track to hit 118%, surpassing that record high. While the 1940s peak was a response to a global war, this new high is being reached during peacetime, fueled by routine demographic pressures. This structural debt anchor strips the government of its financial flexibility, just as the country enters an era of high technological and geopolitical unpredictability. Curious, slightly tense tone. The first major wildcard is how artificial intelligence will interact with an economy already weighed down by this debt. Conservative economic models, including those from Penn Wharton and Goldman Sachs, predict a gradual shift. They project a modest GDP boost over the next decade, with only a minor impact on unemployment. Many tech industry leaders offer a different outlook, predicting significant disruption and widespread white-collar job losses as AI capabilities expand. Despite these disagreements, nearly every study identifies a common vulnerability. Entry-level knowledge workers are the most exposed to this automation. AI can now automate many of the routine drafting and data tasks performed by junior employees. If these roles disappear, young workers lose the traditional starting point for building high-value careers. This creates a direct conflict with the demographic reality. A shrinking generation of young workers is already responsible for supporting a massive retired population. If AI hollows out their job market, they will struggle to generate the taxable wealth required to manage the national debt. Domestic challenges are mirrored by shifts on the international stage, where a debt-burdened America must maintain its global standing. Confidence in American dominance is falling. An Atlantic Council survey of over 350 experts found that fewer than half expect the U.S. to remain the dominant economic power by 2035. Some forecasts suggest a fractured world, splitting into strict U.S.-aligned and China-aligned blocs, with the U.S. falling behind in several critical domains. Alternatively, a multipolar order may emerge, where the U.S. and China remain economically interdependent despite intense competition. This model suggests that shared risks, specifically in AI safety and climate, will force these competing superpowers to maintain channels of cooperation. Unipolar dominance is ending. Future security now hinges on whether the world maintains a tense interdependence or fractures into hostile, isolated blocs. These abstract models have a physical requirement: power. The massive growth in AI and electrification is driving an unprecedented surge in electricity demand. The U.S. is currently scaling up fossil fuel production and renewable infrastructure simultaneously to keep pace with this demand, remaining the world's top oil producer while expanding wind and solar. In an optimistic scenario, AI boosts productivity enough to outpace the rising debt, and global powers cooperate to stabilize trade. However, if AI disrupts the labor market without creating new wealth and geopolitics fracture, the nation's historic debt load becomes a critical vulnerability. The next 10 years will be defined by the friction of these forces: demographics, debt, and technological wildcards, all colliding at once. Survival depends on navigating the transition as these systems lock into their new positions.